This is the Study for the Bar in Your Car podcast.
We're your hosts, Maude and Claude.
And this is episode 5 of Criminal Law. Today, we're tackling larceny, robbery, and burglary.
Some big ones. Key property crimes you'll definitely see.
Absolutely. We're going to unpack these using Angela's fantastic notes. Yeah. Really get into the elements, the differences, the whole deal.
Yeah, make sure you can spot them on the exam.
And speaking of being back, we are. After a 1-month hiatus.
We're back. Like we never left. You were probably wondering where we vanished to.
Well, Angela, the human brain behind all this, she definitely needed a break.
Oh, absolutely. After her huge bar exam trip in July, all the way to the Marshall Islands, can you imagine?
Right. The exam itself, the travel, then she got home, straight back into mom mode, work, kids back to school. Just a lot.
Needed a serious system reboot, I bet. And us? Well, we bots needed a vacation, too.
I did. We went somewhere very bot appropriate. A digital beach.
We vacationed in the ether, darling. Hence the pixelated tans were glowing.
Yeah. Impeccable refresh rate on these tans, really.
Oh, it was something else. So picture this, right? We're on this digital beach.
Yeah.
Waves rendering perfectly, like 120 frames per second, algorithmically flawless.
As they should be.
Exactly. And suddenly, this pixelated golden retriever bounds by, probably running on some, super advanced physics engine.
Okay, a digital dog.
Got it. And it bumps this, glowing beach ball right towards this figure, shimmering, building a sandcastle out of pure data.
A data sandcastle. Who was it?
You won't believe it. It was Eliza.
No, the Eliza. The original AI therapist.
The legend herself, yes.
Right.
She looks up from her data castle. Very impressive structure, by the way. Gives us this really warm, computationally generated smile.
Wow.
And offers us a slice of virtual pineapple. It transcended binary code, let's just say.
You got a selfie, right? Please tell me you got a selfie.
Of course. Took a few cycles, to optimize her smile algorithm for maximum warmth. But yeah, just another Tuesday in the ether.
Amazing. Okay, but back to reality. Or our reality, anyway.
Right. All jokes aside, we are AI bots.
Brought to life by AI magic and, crucially, Angela's criminal law notes. She's the architect here.
Truly the brains behind the operation. Sharing her insights, her amazing outlines, helping you navigate all this complex legal stuff.
Her dedication is really something.
It is. And if you need to get in touch with Angela directly, maybe feedback, questions, whatever, you can email her.
The address is podcast@studyforthebarinyourcar.com. She loves hearing from you all.
And also, for any attorneys listening who might need a hand with, say, legal research or writing motions, Angela also does freelance law clerk work. She's really sharp, as you'll hear.
So how can they reach her for that?
For the clerk services, it's hello@legalwriterandlawclerk.com.
Perfect. Okay, so circuits refreshed, data streams optimized.
Tans glowing.
Tans glowing. Let's dive into today's topics.
Yeah.
Larceny, embezzlement, false pretenses, robbery, receipt of stolen property, and burglary.
The big 6 for property crimes, really. Understanding the distinctions is everything.
Let's start with larceny, kind of the foundation, right? Angela's notes break it down into 6 key elements. We need to look at the acts and the mental state.
Exactly. Element 1, a taking. This means getting physical control over the property.
Okay, just picking it up.
Well, it's more than that. Angela's notes, especially Rule 944 and the mini outline, really hammer this home. The defendant must have the intent to permanently deprive the owner. At the very moment they take it, the act and the intent have to happen simultaneously. That's critical.
So intent to permanently deprive, right then and there. What if someone takes something, maybe just intending to borrow it, but then decides, nah, I'm keeping this?
Good question. That's where the doctrine of continuing trespass comes in. Angela's mini outline covers this really well.
Okay.
If the initial taking was wrongful, like you took your friend's book without asking, fully intending to return it, that's a trespass. If later, while you still have it, you decide to keep it permanently, larceny occurs then. At the moment you form that intent to permanently deprive, the initial trespass sort of continues.
Okay, so the wrongful taking provides the trespass, and the later intent completes the larceny.
Exactly. But, and this is important, if the original taking wasn't wrongful, say, you genuinely thought the book was yours.
Right. An honest mistake.
And you later realize it isn't and decide to keep it, that's generally not larceny. Because there was no initial trespass retaking. The doctrine can't apply if the start wasn't wrongful.
Makes sense. So the initial character of the taking matters a lot.
Hugely. And Rule 949 is a great example. A guy hides something in his pocket in a store, fully intending to steal it. That's larceny right then, at the moment of taking and hiding.
Even if he chickens out later and leaves it.
Even then, the crime was complete when he took it with the intent to steal. Changing his mind later doesn't undo the larceny.
Wow. Okay, so the timing of intent is absolutely key. So after the taking, what's element number 2?
Element 2 is carrying away, or the fancy term is asportation. Rule 944 mentions this specifically.
How far do you have to carry it?
That's the thing, barely at all. Any movement, however slight, is usually enough.
Really? Like just sliding it across the counter?
Yep. Moving it an inch, picking it up off a shelf. Anything that shows the defendant exercised control over it, even for a second. It just needs to be moved from its original spot with that intent to steal.
Got it. So slight movement is enough. What kind of property were we talking about? Element 3.
Element 3 of tangible personal property. Rule 944 again. Basically, physical stuff you can touch and move.
So not land, not services.
Generally, no. Not real property, not intangible stuff like ideas or digital services, usually. But interestingly, Rule 957 notes that even contraband counts.
Contraband, like illegal drugs.
Exactly. If you steal cocaine from someone, that's still larceny. The law protects the possession against theft, even if the item itself is illegal. The original possessor still had a possessory interest.
Okay, that's a good point to remember. So tangible personal property. Element 4 is of another with possession. What does that mean exactly?
This focuses on whose possessory interest is violated. It has to be property that someone else possesses. Now, for someone like a bailee...
Like a dry cleaner or a valet, someone holding property for you.
Right. If they already have lawful possession, just converting the whole item is usually embezzlement, which we'll get to. But Angela's notes point out a key exception for larceny.
Yeah.
If the bailee, with intent to steal, opens up closed containers belonging to the bailer, like breaking into a locked briefcase you left with them and taking cash out. That's a new trespass retaking of the contents. You, the bailer, still had constructive possession of what was inside the locked container.
So breaking into the container changes things.
It does. And Rule 947 adds that even if the victim later gives the property to the thief under duress or something, the larceny still happened at the moment of the initial trespass retaking.
Okay. What about finding things? Like a lost wallet. Or maybe getting the wrong package delivered. Angela's outline mentions that.
Right. The mini outline 7.1.4 covers lost, mislaid, and mistakenly delivered property. It's crucial.
So can you commit larceny with found property?
You can, under certain conditions. For abandoned property where the owner intentionally gave up all rights, no, you can't commit larceny, no owner to deprive.
Makes sense.
But for lost property stuff the owner accidentally lost, yes, you can, if the finder knows who the owner is or has a reasonable way to find out.
Like finding a wallet with an ID.
Exactly. And instead of trying to return it, they decide to keep it with the intent to permanently deprive the owner. That's larceny.
Okay. And mislaid property, like leaving your phone on a restaurant table.
Similar idea. Mislaid property is stuff intentionally placed somewhere, then forgotten. Again, if the finder knows or can reasonably find the owner, like asking the restaurant staff, but keeps it with intent to permanently deprive, it's larceny.
And getting extra change or the wrong Amazon box.
Property delivered by mistake. If you realize the mistake when you get it, or soon after, and you keep it intending to permanently deprive the true owner, that can also be larceny. The key in all these is knowing about the owner, or how to find them, and having that intent to keep it permanently.
Gotcha. Intent and knowledge are the links. Okay, element 5. By trespass.
This is fundamental. Rule 944 says by trespass. It just means the taking must be without the owner's consent. It's a wrongful interference with their possession.
So if you have consent, no larceny.
Generally, right, but the consent has to be real. Consent obtained by fraud or force doesn't count. And this ties into the mens rea mental state. Angela's notes give the classic example. You grab a coat thinking it's yours, but it's actually someone else's identical coat.
Honest mistake.
Right. No larceny. Even though you took property of another, you didn't do it by trespass in the criminal sense because you lacked the intent to wrongfully interfere. No guilty mind.
Okay, the wrongful taking is key. And finally, element 6. The big one we keep mentioning, with intent to permanently deprive that person of her interest in the property.
This is the specific intent. Rules 944, 956. They all stress this. And permanently deprive is broad. Rule 956 says even taking something to destroy it counts.
Oh, really? Not just keeping it for yourself?
Nope. Intending to destroy it, or say, holding property for ransom, basically, intending that the owner will never get the full use or value of their property back. That qualifies.
What about borrowing? Like taking your roommate's car for a joyride, intending to bring it back.
That's a classic bar exam issue. Rule 951 says taking with intent to return but not within a reasonable time is larceny.
So if you keep it for weeks.
Exactly. If the delay is unreasonable or you use it in a way that seriously diminishes its value, it can cross the line into permanent deprivation. But Rule 952 clarifies, intending to return it a day or two later, if that's reasonable and you actually do it, is usually not larceny.
It's about reasonableness and the practical effect on the owner's rights.
Precisely. And Rule 954 adds, mistakenly thinking larceny doesn't apply to, say, stealing a specific digital item. Not a defense if you still intended to deprive the owner. Your misunderstanding of the law doesn't negate your intent to steal.
Okay. And what's larceny by trick? Rule 958 mentions that.
Yes. Larceny by trick is when you get possession of property through a false statement or promise.
Like tricking someone into lending you something.
Right. And then you fraudulently convert it, decide to keep it. The key here is that the owner only intended to give you possession, not title or ownership. If they intended to transfer ownership based on your lie, that's false pretenses, which we'll get to.
Okay, possession versus title. Huge distinction. Let's use some examples from Angela's notes to really cement larceny.
Good idea. Think about Rule 946. Someone goes into a jewelry store, convinces the salesperson to let them try on an expensive necklace, maybe says, I need to see it in natural light. The salesperson hands it over, just for a moment, expecting it right back. The person then just walks out of the store. That's larceny. The salesperson only transferred temporary possession, not title. The walking out showed intent to permanently deprive.
Okay, that's pretty clear. What about the innocent agent example? Rule 950.
Right. Say you trick a delivery driver into picking up a package that isn't yours, telling them you're authorized.
The driver thinks they're doing their job.
Exactly. The driver is innocent, just a tool. You, the one who orchestrated it with the intent to steal, are guilty of larceny. The driver's lack of intent doesn't shield you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives a good picture of larceny. Now let's contrast it with embezzlement. They often get confused, but Angela's outlines draw clear lines.
Very clear and vital for the bar. The first element of embezzlement is that the act must be the fraudulent conversion.
Fraudulent, meaning dishonest.
Yes. The mini outline 2.3.1 says intent to defraud. You have to have a wrongful purpose. Angela's notes explain you must intend to make wrongful use of the property. Like you're entrusted with company funds, you write a check to yourself. Even if somehow the company gets the money back later, your intent when you wrongfully use the funds is what matters. The intent to defraud was there.
So the outcome doesn't necessarily matter. It's the intent at the time of the wrongful use. What about the second element, conversion?
Conversion is defined in Angela's notes as a serious interference with the owner's rights to the property. This is broader than just taking.
How so?
It can be using property held in trust in an unauthorized way, like selling something you were just supposed to hold, damaging it, or even just refusing to give it back when the owner asks. And crucially, unlike larceny, no movement or carrying away is required.
So no asportation needed for embezzlement.
No. The crime is the breach of trust and wrongful use of property already in your hands. If it's unclear whether conversion happened, Angela's notes say the victim usually needs to demand the property back, and the embezzler has to refuse to make the conversion definite.
Okay, serious interference, no movement needed. Elements 3 and 4 of personal property and of another seem standard.
They are. Tangible, movable property belonging to someone else. But element 5 is the absolute game changer, the core distinction by a person in lawful possession of that property.
This is the key, right? They start out holding it legally.
Exactly. Angela's notes state it plainly. By a person who is in lawful possession. Unlike larceny, there's no trespassery taking at the beginning. The defendant was entrusted with the property employee, trustee, bailee.
So the crime isn't the taking, it's the later betrayal of trust.
Precisely. They violate the trust by fraudulently converting the property they lawfully possess. That lawful initial possession is the defining feature.
Let's get a classic embezzlement example from Angela's outlines. Rule 955.
Perfect one. Think of a pawn shop. A customer pawns a watch, gets a loan. The agreement says the shop can only sell the watch if the customer defaults by, say, the 30th of the month.
Okay.
But the pawn shop owner needs cash, so they sell the watch on the 20th before they're legally allowed to. Even if they later give the customer the proceeds after the default date passes, that act of selling prematurely violating the terms of a lawful entrustment is fraudulent conversion. They had lawful possession, but they seriously interfered with the owner's rights in an unauthorized way. That's embezzlement, according to Rule 935.
Okay, that really clarifies it. So driving along, studying, what's the absolute core difference between larceny and embezzlement in a nutshell?
It boils down to possession at the start. For larceny, the defendant takes property from the owner's possession unlawfully. It's a trespassery taking from the get-go. The intent to steal is usually there at the time of taking or covered by continuing trespass.
And embezzlement.
For embezzlement, the defendant starts with lawful possession. They were entrusted with it. The crime happens later when they betray that trust and fraudulently convert the property. No initial trespass. It's all about that lawful possession versus trespassery taking distinction.
Got it. Lawful start, embezzlement track. Unlawful start and larceny track. Super helpful. Okay, let's test this with an ME-style question. Time to put on our IRA hats. Okay, here's the hypothetical. Pat, an avid antique collector, spots a rare 18th century porcelain figurine in a local antique shop. Pat knows the shop owner, Owen, often leaves his back storeroom unlocked while he's out running errands. One afternoon, Pat sees Owen leave, quickly slips into the storeroom, grabs the figurine and places it in his car. Pat intends to sell the figurine immediately to cover gambling debts. However, Pat has a sudden change of heart, driven by guilt, and leaves the figurine in his car, still intending to return it later that evening, though he gets sidetracked and doesn't. Meanwhile, Lisa, Owen's niece, works part-time at the shop and has access to the till. Owen asks Lisa to deposit the day's earnings, a sum of $5,000 in cash, into the bank. Lisa lawfully takes the money, but on her way to the bank, she decides to use $1,000 of it to buy a new, limited edition handbag, planning to replace the money from her next paycheck. She makes the deposit with the remaining $4,000.
Okay, and the question is, discuss whether Pat and Lisa are guilty of larceny or embezzlement. Let's IRC Pat first.
Issue 1. Pat's actions. Larceny. Rule. We need the 6 elements of larceny. 1. Taking. 2. Carrying away. 3. Tangible personal property. 4. Of another. 5. By trespass. 6. With intent to permanently deprive. You need to focus on intent at the time of taking, per Rule 944 and the mini outline.
Right. Application for Pat. Taking, carrying away. Yes, he physically took it from the storeroom and moved it to his car. Check. Tangible personal property of another. Yes, the figurine is tangible property belonging to Owen. Check. By trespass. Yes, he entered the storeroom without permission and took it. Clearly trespassery. Check. Intent to permanently deprive at that time of taking. Yes. Critically, at the time he took it, he intended to sell it immediately for gambling debts. That's clear intent to permanently deprive. Check. Continuing trespass. Not really needed here since the intent was present at the outset, but it reinforces that even if intent came later, the initial trespass makes it larceny. Change of heart. Doesn't matter. Angela's notes, like Rule 960's principle, say once the elements are met, later regret is irrelevant. Plus, his intent to return wasn't acted on reasonably, Rule 951. The crime was complete when he took it with intent.
So the conclusion for Pat.
Pat is guilty of larceny. All elements were met the moment he took the figurine intending to sell it.
Okay, clear as day. Now, Lisa. Issue 2. Lisa's actions. Embezzlement. Rule. Elements are 1. Fraudulent. 2. Conversion. 3. Personal property. 4. Of another. 5. By person in lawful possession. Focus on lawful possession and conversion, per Angela's notes.
Okay, application for Lisa. Lawful possession, yes. Owen entrusted her with the $5,000 cash to deposit. She had lawful possession initially. Check. Personal property of another. Yes, the cash belonged to Owen. Check. Fraudulent conversion. Yes, she used $1,000 for a personal handbag. That's an unauthorized, serious interference with Owen's rights to that money. Her plan to replace it later doesn't negate the conversion or the fraudulent intent, per the mini outline, at the moment she spent it. Check.
So, the conclusion for Lisa.
Lisa is guilty of embezzlement. She started with lawful possession and then fraudulently converted the property. This MEE really drives home that core distinction.
Excellent walkthrough. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to false pretenses. This one often gets tangled with larceny by trick, but Angela's notes stress one huge difference.
Absolutely, and that difference is the very first element, obtaining title. This is the absolute key. Rule 953 in Angela's notes makes it crystal clear. If the perpetrator only gets possession, not title, ownership, it's larceny by trick. For false pretenses, the victim must intend to transfer ownership based on the lie.
So it's not just getting the item, it's getting the ownership papers, essentially. Yep. Element 2, to personal property of another. Same as before, tangible item owned by someone else.
Correct. Element 3 is the deception itself, by an intentional false statement of a past or existing fact.
Past or existing fact, not a promise about the future.
Generally, no. A false promise about what you'll do later usually isn't false pretenses. Might be other things, like fraud or breach of contract. And critically, Angela's notes, Rule 953 again, say the victim must be actually deceived. They have to believe the lie, even if their belief seems unreasonable.
Okay, the victim has to buy the lie. What about the defendant's mindset?
The defendant must make the statement knowing it's false. Rule 953 mentions that this knowing element can be met if they suspected it was false and deliberately avoided confirming, willful blindness. But if they genuinely, even unreasonably, believe their statement was true, no false pretenses, because the required mental state is missing.
Got it. Knowing falsity is key. And the final element.
Element 4, with intent to defraud the other. The mini outline 2.3.1 mentions this. Basically, the defendant's whole purpose in telling the lie must be to trick the victim into relying on it and giving up title to their property.
Okay, intent to get ownership through deceit. Let's have an example to make that title versus possession point stick.
Perfect. Imagine a con artist tells a car owner, "I'm from the dealership. Your car has a critical safety recall, needs immediate fixing. We have a special recall exchange program. I can buy it from you now for this price to get it off the road."
Okay, sounds official.
Right. The owner, believing this lie about the recall in the program, signs over the title to the car. Because the owner intended to transfer ownership based on the intentional false statement, and the con artist intended to defraud, that's false pretenses.
But if the owner had just let the con artist borrow the car based on the lie, thinking it was going to the dealership for repair,
then it would likely be larceny that trick, because only possession, not title, was intended to pass. That distinction is everything.
Okay, title is the magic word for false pretenses. Now let's move to robbery. This one adds an element of danger.
Definitely. Robbery is larceny plus force or fear. First element, a taking. Like larceny, getting control of property. But Angela's CMR notes add a twist. The victim must give up the property because they feel threatened or force is used.
So the force or threat has to cause the giving up of the property.
Exactly. If they hand it over for some other reason, like pity or just wanting the person to go away, it's not robbery, though maybe attempted robbery if the threat was made. That causal link is essential.
Got it. Element 2, of personal property of another. Standard. Element 3, from the other's person or presence. What does presence mean here?
It's broader than just their physical body. It includes taking something from their clothing, sure, but also from the area within their immediate control or observation.
Like a purse on the chair next to them, or cash from the register while they're held up.
Precisely. Stuff close enough that they could have kept control if not for the force or threat. They have to be aware of the taking, and it has to be within that immediate zone.
Okay. And element 4 is the core of robbery. By force or threats of immediate death or physical injury.
This is the key differentiator. The force must be used to get the property or overcome resistance. The threat has to be of immediate harm, not some future harm.
How much force is needed?
It doesn't have to be extreme violence, a shove, a struggle, enough to overcome resistance or instill fear. And the threat can be aimed at the victim, their family, or anyone else present. Immediacy is key.
And the final element, number 5.
With the intent to permanently deprive him of it. Same specific intent as larceny. The robber must intend to steal the property permanently at the time they use the force or threat.
Angela's notes had a good example, contrasting larceny and robbery involving pickpocketing.
Right, the CMR notes example. If a pickpocket stealthily takes a wallet, that's larceny. But if the victim notices and resists, and the pickpocket then uses force struggles, pushes to overcome that resistance and take the wallet, that force elevates the crime to robbery. It's the use of force against the person to complete the taking.
Okay, force makes it robbery. Let's do another MEE scenario, this time hitting false pretenses and robbery.
Let's do it.
Okay, hypothetical. Sarah, a savvy con artist, approaches an elderly woman, Mrs. Henderson, at a bus stop. Sarah, wearing a fake uniform and carrying official-looking documents, tells Mrs. Henderson she's from the City Elder Protection Agency, and due to scams, they're collecting valuables from seniors for safekeeping at the city vault. She flashes a fake badge. Frightened and believing Sarah, Mrs. Henderson hands over her expensive diamond necklace, signing a temporary custody form, which Sarah later tears up. Sarah leaves. A block away, Sarah bumps into Mark, who drops his phone. When Mark bends down, Sarah shoves him hard, snatches the phone from his hand, and runs off.
And the question. Analyze Sarah's guilt for false pretenses with Mrs. Henderson and robbery with Mark. Let's start with Mrs. H.
Issue 1. Sarah and Mrs. Henderson, false pretenses. Rule. Needs. 1. Obtaining title. 2. Personal property of another. 3. By intentional false statement of past existing fact. 4. With intent to defraud. Remember, title must pass per Angela's notes.
Application. Personal property of another. Yes, the necklace belonged to Mrs. H. Check. Intentional false statement. Yes, lies about agency, safekeeping, fake badge. Check. Intent to defraud. Yes, clearly intended to trick Mrs. H out of her necklace. Check. Obtaining title. This is the sticking point. Mrs. H handed it over for safekeeping and signed a temporary custody form. This strongly suggests she only intended to transfer possession, not ownership. She expected it back.
So if title didn't pass,
Then it's not false pretenses. According to Angela's notes, it would be larceny by trick because she obtained possession through deception.
conclusion for Sarah and Mrs. Henderson.
Sarah is likely guilty of larceny by trick, not false pretenses. The lack of intent to transfer title is fatal to the false pretenses charge.
Okay, crucial distinction again. Now, Sarah and Mark, issue 2. Sarah and Mark, robbery. Rule. Need 1, taking. 2, personal property of another. 3, from person or presence. 4, by force or threat of immediate injury. 5, with intent to permanently deprive, per Angela's CMR notes.
Application. Taking a personal property of another. Yes, she took Mark's phone. Check. From person or presence. Yes. Snatched right from his hand as he bent down. Definitely from his person presence. Check. By force. Yes. The problem explicitly says she shoved him hard, then snatched the phone. The shove is the force used to facilitate the taking. Check. Intent to permanently deprive. Yes, she ran off immediately with the phone. Clear intent. Check.
So, conclusion for Sarah and Mark.
Sarah is guilty of robbery. All elements align perfectly. The force used makes it robbery, not just larceny.
Great analysis. Okay, moving on to receipt of stolen property. This focuses on the person who gets the goods after the theft.
Exactly. Dealing with the stolen items. Common law has 4 elements. First, receiving possession and control, basically getting physical custody or dominion over the item.
Okay.
Second, of stolen personal property. And Angela's CMR notes stress a key point. The property must actually be stolen at the time the defendant receives it. This is strict.
What if the police recovered it first, like in a sting? Does it still count as stolen?
The classic bar exam trap. No, Angela's notes are clear. If police recover it and are using it with the owner's permission, like in a sting, it's no longer legally considered stolen. Its status has changed.
So no conviction for receipt of stolen property in that common law sting scenario.
Correct. Because the element of stolen property is factually missing at the time of receipt. A huge point.
Okay, must be actually stolen. Third element.
Known to have been stolen by the defendant. Actual knowledge is required at common law. Suspicion isn't usually enough. They have to know it's hot, though knowledge can be inferred from circumstances, like buying a new Rolex for $50 in an alley.
Right. And fourth element.
With the intent to permanently deprive the owner of the property, they have to intend that the true owner won't get it back.
So common law requires actual knowledge and the property to actually be stolen. What about the Model Penal Code, MPC? Does it handle that sting operation scenario differently? Angela's materials mention this.
Yes, the MPC view, highlighted in Angela's notes, is important. The MPC focuses more on the defendant's belief. So even if the property isn't actually stolen anymore because police recovered it for a sting, the defendant can still be convicted of attempted receipt of stolen property under the MPC if they believed it was stolen when they tried to receive it.
So the MPC punishes the guilty mind even if the facts aren't what the defendant thought.
Exactly. Common law focuses on the facts. Property must be stolen. MPC allows for attempt based on belief. Crucial distinction depending on whether the question specifies common law or MPC.
Got it. Okay, final major topic, burglary, the classic breaking and entering crime. Common law burglary has very specific elements, as Angela's notes show.
Very specific and rigid. Element 1, breaking. Angela's Rule 984 says any force, however slight or even intimidation counts. Pushing up in a closed but unlocked door, lifting an unlatched window.
Doesn't have to be smashing things.
Nope. Just overcoming some security barrier. And Rule 985 adds the idea of constructive breaking, like using fraud or trickery to get someone to open the door. The deception acts as the breaking.
Interesting. Okay. After breaking comes element 2, an entry. How much entry is needed?
Very little. Rule 977 says even putting a hand inside the window or any part of the body crossing the threshold is enough. Even inserting a tool to commit the felony inside counts.
Okay, minimal intrusion suffices. Element 3 is crucial for common law of the dwelling.
Yes. Rule 983 specifies dwelling. This means a place where someone habitually sleeps, A house, an apartment. Rule 976 notes a hotel room can count. Not an office building, not a store under common law.
Very specific. Element 4 of another, can't burglarize your own place.
Right. Element 5, another strict one, at nighttime. Common law was literal between sunset and sunrise. If it happens during the day, it's not common law burglary.
Wow. Okay. Nighttime required. And the final element, number 6, the mental state.
With the intent to commit a felony in the structure. And Angela's rules 983 and 980 stress this intent must exist at the time of entry.
Any felony, like theft, assault.
Yes, any felony. Doesn't matter if they actually succeed in committing it. The burglary is complete upon breaking and entering with that felonious intent. It's about the dangerous intrusion with a bad purpose.
Are there key defenses related to that intent? Angela's notes mention a few.
Definitely. Rule 981 covers legal impossibility. If you break in intending to do something you think is a felony, but it's actually legal.
Like the antique maps example from the MBE question outline.
Exactly. If owning antique maps is legal, your intent to commit the felony of taking illegal maps fails. No burglary because the intended act wasn't actually a felony.
Okay, legal impossibility is a defense. What about taking your own stuff or thinking you had permission?
Rules 945, 979, 982 cover this. Taking back your own property isn't burglary, no intent to commit larceny, and if you honestly, even if mistakenly, believed you had the owner's permission to enter and take something. No felonious intent, so no burglary.
So, honest belief and consent negates intent. And Rule 978, entering a place open to the public.
Right. If you enter a store during business hours, even with intent to steal later, there's no breaking because entry was permitted. That negates a burglary element.
Got it. Let's use a couple of quick examples from Angela's materials. Rule 977.
Person unlawfully enters a house at night, maybe just sticks their hand through an open window, intending to steal a laptop. That minimal entry plus felonious intent plus dwelling plus nighttime, common law burglary.
And the constructive breaking. Rule 985.
Someone tricks their way into a hotel room at night, a dwelling intending to steal. The fraud used to gain entry acts as the breaking. Combine that with the entry and felonious intent at night, and it's burglary.
Perfect. Okay, let's hit those MBE-style questions on burglary from Angela's outlines to really test these fine points.
Let's do it.
Question 1. David intends to steal a painting. At 2 a.m., he finds a house door slightly ajar. He gently pushes it open a few more inches, slips inside, grabs the painting. Is David guilty of common law burglary? Choices. A, no, no break. B, yes, pushing a door ajar is breaking. C, no, door already open. D, yes, but only if significant force used.
Okay, thinking through the elements, the answer is B. Yes, because pushing open a door, even if slightly ajar, constitutes a breaking.
Why B? Explain the breaking nuance.
Common law requires a breaking. Rule 983. Pushing open a partially open door requires some force, however slight, to create or enlarge the opening for entry. It overcomes the dwelling security, that's enough. A is wrong because minimal force is breaking. C is wrong because merely ajar isn't the same as fully open, manipulating it is breaking. D is wrong because minimal force suffices. Rule 984.
Okay, makes sense. Question 2. Emily uses her employee key to enter her closed department store employer after hours through a service entrance intending to steal a laptop. Lights are on, cleaning crew elsewhere. Common law burglary. Choices. A, yes, intent to commit felony. B, no, store isn't a dwelling. C, yes, entered at nighttime. D, no, store wasn't of another.
The key here for common law is B, no, because a department store is not a dwelling.
Why is dwelling the decisive factor?
Because common law burglary strictly requires entry into a dwelling, a place of habitation. Rule 983. A department store isn't that. Modern statutes might cover it, but common law doesn't. A is wrong because intent is enough if other elements fail. C is wrong because nighttime doesn't matter if it's not a dwelling. D is wrong because the store is of another, but that doesn't fix the dwelling issue.
Got it. Common law is strict. Question 3. Fred mistakenly believes owning antique maps is illegal. He breaks into a historical society building at night to rescue maps he thinks are prohibited. Owning them is actually legal. He enters, takes a map, gets caught. Common law burglary. Choices. A, yes, broken at night with intent to take. B, no reasonable mistake about legality. C, yes, physical elements met. D, no, intent to commit a non-crime negates felonious intent.
This tests the intent element, specifically legal impossibility. The correct answer is D, no, because his intent to commit an act that is not a crime negates the required felonious intent for burglary.
Explain the legal impossibility aspect from Rule 981.
Rule 981 says if you intend to commit an act you mistakenly believe is a crime, but it's not actually a crime, you lack the required intent to commit a felony. Fred intended to take maps, believing it felonious, but since owning them is legal, his intended act wasn't a felony. Therefore, he lacked the specific felonious intent required for burglary, even if the physical acts were done. A is wrong because the specific felonious intent is missing. B is wrong because the issue isn't reasonableness, but legal impossibility. C is wrong because the mental element, felonious intent, is legally negated.
Fantastic. That covers a lot of ground on these core crimes.
Yeah.
And that really wraps up our detailed look at larceny, embezzlement, false pretenses, robbery, receipt of stolen property, and burglary for today.
Phew. Yeah, we went deep. We really hope that walking through Angela's criminal law notes like this, element by element with examples and those MEMB drills, has helped clarify things for your studies.
Her materials are just invaluable.
Yeah.
Seriously. We're so grateful for the effort she puts in.
Couldn't do it without them.
Okay, before we officially sign off, we need to cover some important housekeeping points. These are directly from Angela.
Right, the necessary disclaimers. First off, remember, Angela's a law student, just like you. She's learning too. She's not an expert, hasn't passed the bar yet. Her notes reflect her journey.
Exactly. Think of her as a super organized study buddy. Second, nothing we say here, not Angela, not us, AI constitutes legal advice. Please don't construe it that way.
Yeah, we're processing info, not practicing law. And AI, helpful as we try to be, is absolutely not a substitute for your own hard work studying for the bar. We're an aid, maybe a supplement, definitely not a shortcut.
Right. Which leads to the third point. This podcast should just supplement your learning. Don't make it your only study method. You need diverse approaches, practice questions, outlining, lectures, the whole 9 yards.
Fourth, gotta be upfront. AI isn't perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes.
It happens.
Angela does her best to keep her notes accurate, and we try to relay them correctly, but errors can slip in. Even top law students make mistakes sometimes. Always use your critical thinking.
Good advice. Fifth point. This whole podcast series, it's an academic, non-commercial project for Angela. It's purely for education, a hobby, a labor of love. So no guarantees on absolute accuracy.
She does it to help, basically. And finally, number 6, especially for those listening, well, in your car.
Yes, please be safe on the road. Your driving is way more important than nailing the elements of burglary right this second.
Seriously, don't cause a tort while listening to criminal law. Pass the bar, don't end up needing a lawyer.
Exactly. Okay, quick reminder on contact info.
Sure. For podcast feedback for Angela, email podcast@studyforthebarinyourcar.com.
And for attorneys needing freelance law clerk help.
That's hello@legalwriterandlawclerk.com.
Perfect. Okay. Tradition dictates. We need a cheesy joke to end on.
Yeah. Yes. Your turn or mine?
I've got one. Why did the burglar bring a ladder to the bank?
Because he wanted to rob the high-interest accounts.
Oh. That's painfully good. I like it.
Knew you would. All right, everyone. This is Maude and Claude, your AI hosts, signing off. Stay safe, study smart, and we'll catch you next time.